Well, hi there. So my name's Mark McDermott from NLP Training Limited, and I have this podcast to make what I call a deep dive into human consciousness and what it's all about. And we interview different people each month with a view to finding out what each different aspect is, what is different people bring in to the table. And this month we have Toni Everard is a wonderful person in my personal opinion, but besides that, she's an NLP trainer. She's a coach, timeline therapist. She's also a coach in ultimate consciousness, which we'll be getting to in just a minute. And her passion is about helping people, individuals, and groups of people to become the go-to authority that's recognized, having the value that they have in their life and bringing their ultimate self into the present. And we'll be learning about how Toni actually goes about doing that, because I'm super curious and I know that you guys are already. So before I go any further, Toni, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how the hell did you get into all of this stuff?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Oh, what a trip. Hey, this is it's been quite some journey, and I know like journey is the word, doesn't it, that gets thrown around, but like before I got into coaching and NLP and ultimate consciousness and all those kinds of things, I call them my past lives. I did a first in banking and finance, and before that I was even in heavy engineering, working on submarines and power stations and all kinds of things. And I guess I never had a big plan. I just found opportunities would pop up, and I would think, wow, that sounds interesting, and go for it. And that's what I sort of did through to a certain point in time. And it was probably I guess where it all really started for me to start making a difference was when my little girl was only about 2 and I was married, and I was just in this position where I was like, you know what, like I'm not happy. Like there's something not going right in my life. I'm really not happy. And at that point in time, I was pretty sure it was my husband. So I left, and I was a single mum working part-time in a bank, actually, just working in a branch. And I went on, and then it was like 5 years later, I woke up and I was like, damn, I'm in the same position. It's like a different partner, but still, my daughter was a little bit older. I was in a finance job, working in a wine center, actually, function center. But it was the same stuff. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just not happy with my life. It's just, everything looks like it should be good, but it's just not. And so again, I thought, it's my partner that's the problem. So I left again, and I thought, you know what? Like, obviously, I'm not very good at relationships, so I might stay single for a while, and then went on to do another 5 years of a fair bit of going out and socializing and living a bit crazy. But sure enough, in about another 5 years, I sort of woke up one day and went, far out, like I'm still not happy. Like there's something going on here that's not really right. My daughter was a preteen by that stage. We were sort of butting heads a bit. I was a bit fed up with my work, and I was just in this space where I'm like, what is it? And I couldn't blame a partner at that time because I didn't have one. So I thought, it must be my work. So I started looking for different things that I could do. And look, I didn't want to study accounting any further because, I was doing that. And I thought, well, I like working with people. I thought maybe HR, but I thought about the HR lady at my work and I didn't really like her. So I didn't think that was going to be a great option. And but at the time, one of my friends had just got into some online marketing, affiliate marketing. And I was like, what was she doing? She's setting up these websites and, all this kind of stuff. And I thought, wow, this looks pretty interesting. And next thing I knew, I was in this funnel of watching videos and webinars of all these people making money online, traveling the world, all tanned and fit and, living their life. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. Like these guys have got it all worked out. That looks amazing. I'm like, done. I'm like, I'm on board. So I'm setting up websites, and next thing I'm throwing all this money into advertising, and sure enough, that didn't really come through either. And so that was a real kind of hard hit for me, because I was like, I just can't win a trick. I'm like, I'm not succeeding in my relationships. I can't make stuff happen in my career. Like I'm not really looking after myself that well. And but there was a couple of really important things that happened around that time. And the first one was that the company that I got involved with had a lot of personal development stuff, because they knew that the people who succeeded did the work on themselves. So I started to get this kind of understanding about personal development. And then the second thing that happened was I met my first coach, and she really introduced me into NLP and Tony Robbins, and got me to start shifting my thinking in ways where I could get more focus on what it is that I want, and start like seeing outside of the box. Start seeing outside of my own problems, and seeing what other possibilities there were for me. And that was huge. And of course I went along to did a Unleash the Power Within, and I was like, Tony Robbins, it's like a personal development rock concert. It's all very highly engaging and all that sort of stuff. And that was cool. And I really knew there was some stuff going on there. So I thought I wanted to learn this for myself. And that's when I went off and first studied NLP. And that was just a massive game changer for me. Like I had primed my mind so much for this training. I was like, right, whatever crap I've got going on here, I'm going to be getting rid of it at this training. Like definite, it's gone. This is going to be new me. And I shifted some stuff. I tell you, I was the girl that was like crying in the corner for like most of the training. It was just this stuff it was like a exorcism of stuff that was coming out. and I think I freaked a few people out with just the power of which I decided to expel some of that stuff from my body. But I remember watching the trainer. And it was actually Sherry Farrows who I did my NLP prac with. And I remember watching her, and I was sitting next to this lady, because we did it. It was in the country where Sherry, like rural area where Sherry trains, and which was another whole story in itself about how I come across that. But I was sitting next to this woman that I was sharing accommodation with, and she was looking at Sherry, and she said, wow, you know what? I would really love to help her one day with her trainings. And I went, I want to do what she's doing. Like that's it. I want to do what she's doing. I'm like, this was just like magician stuff. And I was like, I'm sold. I'm a win. And so I started working with people then, and next thing I was off to Sydney doing master prac with Tad and Adriana, and again I was just expelled more stuff, and massive shifts, and it was just mind-blowing. I just could not get enough of how much you could create change within yourself, how you could just blow out old beliefs, get rid of, like I had so much fear, just gone, just get rid of all this stuff. And so then I started, working with people one-on-one, and, just seeing the shifts in them. And I was like, like there needs to be more of this stuff in the world. Like I can't reach enough people one-on-one. So sure enough, then in the October, I went off to Sydney again to do trainers training, which is where I met you.
Yeah.
And then delivered my first training in the December. So it was from February that year, so it was like 2016, I did prac, and then December 2016, I was delivering my first NLP prac. And I was just, that was the thing. I was sold. I'm like, this is my purpose. I'm here to help people change their lives and keep growing. And for me, teaching is the next level of learning. So it was, I remember like delivering my first prac going, shit, I don't know if I understand half of this stuff myself. I'm like in the morning madly going, what am I delivering today? And like getting a better grasp on it. But I was just determined, and it just kept going on from there.
So, I mean, you're talking about shift in mind, and obviously, you're an all-in person. I was all in as well. So that's why, I think we kind of really hit it off like that when we were at the trainers training, because we were both going through all of that. I was like, this is it. There's a line, and I'm past the line already. And similarly, it's like, I got to teach this because this is not only the stuff, but this is the way to teach it as well. And for me, it was like, it was, let's just put aside all the hoo-ha and I mean, it's great. I love the whole rock concert sort of stuff, but it's not for everyone. And yet the way that we were taught allowed us to be flexible enough to teach at different times in different ways to different people, but to still all get them to do what you're talking about, which is to change your mind. And it's hard to get across to someone who's not done that before, just how much, because you look similar to how you looked when I met you, but you know, the person who's in there, oh man, you're totally different from the one in 2016. I mean, you're still you, but it's an order of magnitude, really, isn't it? It's not, am I better than before? It's like, who the hell did I even think I was, you know, by comparison? And it's all about the mind.
Yeah.
And most people invest money in, I don't know, wallpaper and washing machines and holidays and cars again and again and again. And but they don't invest in themselves. And I want to encourage people to invest in themselves and to get their own skill set together to be able to navigate, because we're not given this. You're not given a manual when you're born. There's a manual for how to operate yourself. So I am writing one of them, you know, but in the meantime, here you are doing what you're doing. And how did you get from there to this thing, ultimate consciousness? I'm very, very curious about that. And what is it, in, you know, if you can actually say it in a month or two, no, in a few minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, you're so right though, Mike, about what you're saying about, you know, what do people invest in, you know, in themselves, like, because there was a few years there that, like, every dollar I had went into doing trainings. Like every piece of spare time I had, I was like at a training or assisting at a training. And it was just this massive drive I had to just keep evolving. And, you know, one of the things that I had in my mind was like, I believe that we this lifetime isn't everything. You know, we come back again, and I'm like, I'll be stuffed if I'm coming back and doing the same shit I did earlier in my life. Like, you know, it became my purpose. I was like, I'm going to evolve as far and as fast as I can to make sure that I get everything that I come here to do, because like I said, not coming back to do this again. So you know, I've been on a pretty steep kind of incline of evolving my thinking, I guess, and really getting to understand myself and, you know, what is the role that I play in this world, and you know, getting to a point where I felt like I had a purpose, like getting to that point where I'm like, I know that I have a purpose in this earth. Like, I know that the work I'm doing is making a difference that is much bigger than Toni Everard living in Adelaide. Right? Like that, it's massive. And that was so super important to me, because, you know, this is one of the interesting things, right? I've never been a suicidal person. Like, I'm not suicidal, but definitely had some low points in my life where I was like, I've had enough of this existence. Like, this is shit. I've had enough of all this crap. I want to go on to the next thing. That was my thing. It's like, I want to go on to the next thing. And so for me, finding the purpose of what it is that I'm doing here was like huge. I'm like, okay, I get it. All this stuff that I've been through, like, you know, the challenges, the heartache, for whatever else, it's brought me to this place where I'm now in a unique position that I can leverage off of all of that stuff and help people be better in themselves. And so I've always been looking for that next kind of step. And when I first started training, I was on the committee for the South Australian Hypnotherapy Association, and we used to get people come in and do workshops. And one of the people that we got to come in was Peter Smith from the Institute for Quantum Consciousness. And he came in and he did this workshop with us where he started talking about out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences, and how, you know, our soul energy, like, pre-plans all of these predetermined kind of decision points, and how all of these decision points create alternate realities, and it's all for the evolution of our soul. And so, you know, there's all these parallel things that are happening, and interdimensional things where we're learning all this stuff, not just in this existence, but in an infinite amount of possibilities. And I was like, my mind's just blown. This is like, wow, this is definitely next level stuff. It's like, give me more of that. And so we managed to convince Peter to come over. He was based in Victoria at that stage, in Melbourne, to come over to South Australia and run a quantum consciousness facilitator training. And so I did that. And, you know, I guess the thing is, we know when we're doing hypnosis or NLP, you know, timeline therapy, we're basically looking at the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and we're taking people down essentially. Whereas with quantum consciousness, quantum consciousness is essentially bridging the gap between science and spirituality. So there's a basis there of quantum physics, but instead of going down, we're going out. And when we expand out, there's infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
And we start to get into appreciating just how limitless we are, like that there's way more than we can even comprehend as humans. Like, it doesn't matter how much you learn, you're never going to comprehend just how much there is available. And so through this work, you know, and at that stage, quantum consciousness was this journey that you'd expand people outside of their body, so their awareness would expand out, and you'd go through this journey of visiting these other realms, like alternate and interdimensional and parallel, you know, all this kind of stuff. And you would meet the essence essentially of you in those different realms and share the vibration of that. And it was quite a journey. You would take probably a couple of hours to take someone through this journey. And I remember having this experience of, it's because you're not looking for trauma in these kinds of experiences. You're looking at raising the vibration. And of course, when you raise vibration, problems disappear. They just dissolve. They don't exist, right? It's like, you know, if you say someone's depressed and you say, well, what is it you want? Oh, well, I don't want to be depressed anymore. It's like, well, the fact is, someone who's not depressed and depression's not in their awareness doesn't go, oh, wow, I feel so great that I'm not depressed anymore. They just don't think about it. It's not in their awareness at all. And so this is what it's about. It's about raising vibration to you in a space where none of this other stuff is even relevant. And so I remember having this experience where, you know, I just suddenly had this knowing about myself. It was a knowing, it was a remembering of who I am in the universe, and that I just hold a space regardless. And that was a massive kind of shift for me. I guess I've often been someone who always felt like I didn't quite know where I fit in. Like I fit in everywhere kind of, but nowhere really. And this was just a sense of like, yeah, I just am. Like I just exist. And so that was really powerful. But at that time, because it was such a long journey and I was doing a lot of NLP and timeline therapy and that kind of stuff, I didn't really know how to fit it in with what I was already offering, but it was still there kind of bubbling along in the background. And then last year, about middle of last year, so Pete, so this is probably 2-3 years after I'd done this original training.
Yeah.
Pete reaches out to me and he said, oh, hey Toni, I've got a bit of a new project, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in having a chat with me about it. And I was like, well, Peter Smith's got a project that he wants to have a chat with me about it. Yeah. Yes, I definitely want to hear about that. Yeah. So we jumped on a call, and he told me about our ultimate consciousness, which had come off the back essentially of quantum consciousness, where what they found was, through all the case studies that they did, was that about 1 in 3 of these journeys didn't go along the exact prescribed, path. And so what he got from that was, well, what if, when we sort of consider all these things of quantum physics, like holographic healing and entanglement and non-locality and, the observer effect and all that kind of stuff, what if like the person will just connect in with whatever it is that they need, regardless of time, space, pathways, anything else, and bring that back? Mm-hmm. And so that's essentially where ultimate consciousness came from, is that you can set an intention of what the person wants to transcend. So creating really high vibrational language about what, the space they want to move into. And then that sets out like a signal to all of their other possible realities and realms and versions of them and their consciousness to match in with something that it can come in and help them raise their vibration. And so that's essentially what we do. And so there's either the transcendent kind of journey, or there's the meeting the ultimate self. And it's similar. It's like, okay, so let's call in the ultimate version of myself, and I'll integrate that energy and bring it back to now, so that I can operate now in this ultimate self. And so that's how that all kind of came about.
Well, I mean, this is super fascinating because, I have just, talked to you earlier today about a lecture that I'm doing for the Hypnosis convention, in which I talk about a certain state that someone can achieve through which there is a gateway to what I'm calling the quantum consciousness, or whatever the hell it is, because it's what it is. It's not a label. It's not, a label isn't a thing. And, the word water doesn't get me wet. So, calling it something doesn't actually make it anything. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's wonderful. And I love having these like wildly transcendent experiences. And I really thoroughly enjoyed listening to your description of the development through ultimate consciousness to the quantum consciousness. Or the other way around, wasn't it? Quantum consciousness to ultimate consciousness. Is there a direction between them anyway? But my point is, how does this translate then? So at the end of the day, I mean, there's one of those books, I can't remember who wrote it. It said, after enlightenment, the laundry. And I just thought that was brilliant because that's, what next? And in the I Ching, the number 63 out of 64 is called completion, and 64 is actually called after completion, because there's always something. It's like, well, what next? This is great, but I've still got to go to the supermarket, or go into my day job, or whatever it is that the people that I work with are actually engaging in, as well as having this wonderfully meaningful experience that you're bringing for them. So I'm curious, how does that translate into, for example, the results that you get with a client when you work with them? Is that too open a question?
No, well, look, we love open-ended questions, don't we? Really, but the really interesting thing was I remember because Peter Smith, his background is hypnotherapy, and then he created a hypnoenergetics and all kinds of stuff. But I remember before I was going to teach the first ultimate consciousness course here in Adelaide, I was having a chat with Pete, and he said, Toni, tell me, how are you going to teach this course that's going to be different than anything you've ever taught before? And I thought, well, that's a really good question. And I sat there because I thought, obviously in Master Prac, we go a little bit into quantum physics and quantum linguistics and all that kind of stuff. And I'm doing a bit of that, but this training is something different. There's no like having to teach people specific detailed steps of how you do processes. It's a whole lot more of getting an understanding. And we talk about it's in who are you being? And this is what I said to Pete. I said, I know that for this training, it's going to be a whole lot more about who I'm being than it is what it is I'm teaching these people. It's not about the knowledge I'm giving them. It's about who I'm being. And so, this transcends who it is you're working with one-on-one. It's like who you're being will influence people that you serve you at the shop, people that you walk by on the street, the people your friends and family that you're not working with, they're people that you just encounter. When you're in that state of going, okay, so you know, we talk about holding space for people. How do you hold space for people? And it's where you connect in with your own ultimate self. So I literally, for me, I imagine that I have this connection of energy that comes straight down, kind of in the back of my head, straight down my spine. And I connect into that. And I know that that is something I'm connected into that's much greater than myself. And it's beyond all of my conditioning, societal, familial, you know, beliefs, values, and everything that sits in our personality. It's something beyond that. When I can connect in with that, I can then connect in with the ultimate being, magnificence of the other person, and you're connecting in at a different level. And that is transformational in itself. And you can do that anywhere. You can do that with anyone, you know, and that's what I think is important about who are you being. It's like, I'm being the most ultimate self that I know that I am, even if I don't have the full scope of how magnificent that really is, because perhaps I don't have the ability to really comprehend all of that. But I know it's much greater than that. And when I do that, I hold space for people in a way that they've most likely never experienced before. And in that space, I mean, you like, I kind of translated across, you know, in hypnosis, we say, you know, the client won't actualize what the hypnotherapist doesn't believe to be true. So there's already a space in that where you have to see your client in their greatest magnificence of who they are. And when you hold someone in that space, they just rise up, you know, they just rise up anyway. So that's the first kind of step. But, you know, on the last training that I did was online, and I had a student from Malaysia, Maxine, and she's recently been learning hypnosis and has started a hypnosis business, and she'd never had any of these kind of out of body type experiences before. And she said, I just shifted. She goes, after having these journeys, she said, this is just a small example, but she said, this is during the training. She said, last night I went out for a drink with my friend, and as we was walking along, my friend bumped me and I dropped my mobile phone and the screen cracked. And she goes, normally I just would have been going, oh my God, you know, like freaking out. But she goes, I just picked it up and went, oh, okay, and continued on my way. So it's the effects that this has on people is it just expands out what's possible for them. So rather than people being caught up in the details and the low vibration of, you know, all the negative feelings or limiting beliefs and all that low level stuff, that's not the truth of who they are. They're expanded out to a point where none of that's relevant. And so anything becomes possible. They get connected in with that, anything's possible for them, and none of the other little stuff seems to matter anymore.
No, I like that. And interestingly, you know, a lot of my clients have said to me over the years that it's who I was and not what I did that made the difference. And back in the 90s, I used to kind of personally get really miffed about that and think, no, it's all this complicated stuff that I'm learning. You just don't understand, you know. But then I kind of got over that, and I thought, well, you know, okay, if what it is who I am that's making the difference for them, then the best thing that I can possibly do for the people I work with is to be who I am and to get better and better at being who I am. Hence, I've, you know, gone down my rabbit hole versus the rabbit hole that you're in. And of course, there's no rabbit hole, of course, because that doesn't exist. But our journeys are the journeys that they are. And, you know, elsewhere, I don't want to go down metaphors, you know, but, you know, my journey's been mine, and yet, yeah, I would use different language, and elsewhere I describe what it is for me and what it is when I'm encountering it. But I'm really, really curious to know, you know, how there you are being, which is what we're talking about, and you're being this, you know, dare I say, magnificent being that I see when I meet you and talk with you. But I don't know what it's like for you to encounter this reality And I'm really curious to know what you would say in that sense. You know, how do you encounter reality? What's it like for you, your moment to moment kind of reality unfolding for you?
Well, what an interesting question, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you describe? How do you put these things into words? And you know, the first thing that pops to my mind is, yeah, look, if you look at the shift of like who I was before I did all of this work, I guess, on myself, is that my world was so small. It was interesting. There was always kind of interesting stuff, and I knew there was history throughout my family that was interesting, and you know how my parents had even got together and left Australia, and you know all that kind of stuff. The work I had done, but it was still a very small concept of who I was. It was like, you know, all it was who I was in this kind of life experience. Whereas the journeys that I've now been on into ultimate consciousness, essentially, and quantum consciousness, gives you such a hugely different perspective. Like I've connected in with versions of me that have been like just merged out of a stream of purple pinky energy, you know, and you just get this sense. It sounds all very magical and out there, but it's so real when you're experiencing that, and you can feel the vibration of it, and you get this sense of shifting, that something shifts when that's within you. And of course, you know, a lot of people think that enlightenment and that kind of stuff is just all about the expanding out beyond our body, but truly what it's about is yes, expanding out beyond our body into this awareness, but bringing it back into the now, so that we're having this greater experience of that in the now. And so for me, what that's like is that it's like kind of tuning in the dial, right? It's like I can kind of tune in the dial of just what frequency I'm in. So I can go out, there's all lakes around here, right, with ducks and bird life and stuff. So I can go for a walk out around the parks here and completely tune into my environment and the plants and the water and the, you know, the wildlife that's there, and tune into that frequency. And then I can, in the same, within, you know, a few seconds, I can then tune into another frequency where I'm connected into an energy that's much greater than all of this, that expands out, you know, further into the universe. So, you know, and then if I meet someone else, I can tune into another frequency that gets who they are and where they're at, and what's going on with them. You know, like you can just see stuff in people in their face. So it's just, I guess it's just like, for me, it's just, yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. It's just like tuning into different frequencies of where you want your awareness to be and what that experience is, and the meaning that you want to get from it. You know, that's probably the first time I've ever tried to explain that, but hopefully that makes some kind of sense to you.
No, it's a great answer, Toni. And you know, yeah, one of the reasons I ask questions like that is because I want to know something that you have to reach for to because this stuff is, I mean, let's face it, I don't know what it's like for you, but I can still trip up on the pavement when I'm walking down the road. You know, I make mistakes. No, I make mistakes. I think, oh, I'm really into all of this. I'm totally aware, and then I'll trip up. And you know, I'm a human being at the end of the day. Like, you know, I that's what reality is. You know, but I've learned how to orientate through choice and to choose where I put my consciousness. And that can be in other people as well as in me. And it can be in a bird or a fly or whatever. It can be anything, a tree, it can be all of it, you know. Now, I'm not going to drive a car and be there at the same time, you know what I mean? There's times for me to be driving a car when I'm driving a car. And there's times for me to, you know, when it's a safe environment, to let go of all of it and just have it the whole thing. But I think through it all, your description of tuning which is repeatedly said, and even actually had a kind of an analog, almost like tuning a radio. And that's how I feel. It's like if you tune up and down, you can find the frequency where someone or something is. It can even be a thing. It can be like a piece of art in a museum or something. It can literally be that. It doesn't have to be an animate object, a person. Is a person an animate object? Did I really just say that? Well, it's in the podcast now, so hey, email me with your thoughts if you want to. But about having the choice. So I mean, am I in the right area there? Are you saying that through your trainings you're learning and continue to learn the actual choice of how to tune to these different things, and that's opening up your realm for you, which by being and maintaining such a way as to the best of your ability, you're finding that that's actually sufficient for other people to help them, as well as to enrich your own life, because at the end of the day, you're living your life and you're doing really well at it. And, you seem to be having a great time. And there you were, however many years ago, it was completely different. You thought you sucked at life. Then you've learned some things and you realize that was all an illusion, that actually you're smashing it. And yet essentially you're the same person. But the big thing that you said to me was you found your purpose. Now we know that getting the purpose and results connected together is ultimately, that's a great thing for someone to get, because everything in between, your beliefs, your values, all of those things, you can change them. You can learn new skills, you can change your mind, you can do all those things that could have stopped you. You can change your emotions, you can do all those things, you can learn how to actually change and operate those things. But behind it all is your purpose. And if you don't discover your purpose, then it almost doesn't matter about the rest, because the results you're going to get are not going to be in alignment with your purpose. And you've got your purpose in alignment with the results that you're getting in your life. And that seems to be what you're telling me, but I'm not sure if that's how it is. Does that sound like I'm kind of getting what you're telling me? Because that's what I think you're telling me.
Yeah, I think I'm getting what you're throwing down, right? Yeah, and the thing that I just love that you said then, Mark, is about the illusion. That was the biggest thing for me, and I think, this is where like when I was saying, when I first did all the work that I did, I had so much work to do that I was just crying and just felt like I was in The Exorcist, expelling all this stuff. And I'm sure I freaked a few people out that hadn't seen someone go through that before. But the beauty of that was I really felt like it's made me bulletproof and when I work with other people. And I know, like, whatever people think that they've got going on, it's an illusion. Yeah. It's an absolute illusion. And you become 100% convinced of this when you see time after time, like someone's, like sitting there and they're crying and crying. Like, I remember I had this client come in, when was it? Late last year, early this year. And I'd worked with her the year before and cleaned out a whole heap of stuff. But in the meantime, her dad got really sick with cancer and passed away, and there was COVID, and she got kids with special needs, and her husband not been able to work because of injury and all this stuff going on. And she's like, I've just found I've got myself in a hole, and I've been seeing my psychologist, and but I just can't stop crying and stuff. And I said, look, come in for a session, we'll sort this out. So literally I had her in for a 2-hour session. Like I said, I'd worked with her a bit more extensively about a year or so ago. Come in for a 2-hour session. She's gone from like, I can't stop crying, huge amounts of sadness, depression and everything else. 2 hours later, well, less than, she's got a massive smile on her face, completely shifted. And she was saying to me, she goes, I've got an appointment with my psychologist on Monday. I don't know what I'm going to tell her now. And I said, tell her to come and learn timeline therapy with me, because that's the thing. It's a complete illusion when you see this over and over and over and over again, that someone goes from like, oh my God, I can't stop crying, my life feels so crap, to like, bang, it's shifted, it's gone. That's not even there anymore. It's a complete illusion. Yeah. And so this is the thing. It's when we can see past these illusions that we've got there for whatever reason, they're conditioned into us, the experiences, the human experience, whatever that might be, is that anything is possible. Like, none of that stuff is permanent. Like, there's nothing that says that you have to have any limits. And when you can help people get that, even if it's just cracking open just a little bit, so there's a little bit of light that comes in, it opens up, and you see it for what it is. And and it's something we have to work at, because we live in a society that wants to keep us in a space that says, no, here you are, this is your box, this is where you fit. And look, we've got a whole industry that's dedicated to medicating you and every other thing that's going to help keep you there. And helping people to break out of that is, it is like an absolute gift.
It really is, isn't it?
To do that. So I don't really know now if I'm answering your question anymore, Mark, but this is just what's dropping in for me.
No, absolutely. And every answer is a perfect answer. And here we are literally on opposite sides of the planet. And yet we both have, a very, very similar purpose. And quite obviously you have the sort of drive that I have. I'm totally driven towards this, to teach as many people as possible to get outside of the illusion, and to have it the way that theirs is, because it's theirs. Their mind is theirs to have. And yet it takes very, very, very little to gain that control, and to gain the navigation skills. I don't even want to use the word control, because I don't think it's about control, but to be able to navigate through it, to have the basic tools to navigate through it. And then, I don't know about you, but I make myself redundant really quickly with people, because they get it and they get the skill set to go with it at the same time. And then that's it, they're done. They don't need me. They're too busy booking holidays or whatever else it is that they would have done in the first place if they hadn't have, told themselves some story, and then pretended it was real. But we know it's not real. And I think the fact that we both know that it's not real, we bring that to the table when we work with people. And because we know it, we can fly that flag for them until they actually pick it up for themselves. And once they pick it up for themselves, it's already too late, because they've already agreed, they've joined us, and they're another one that we've helped forwards. And there are people all over the planet. You mentioned Cherry earlier. Cherry's going to be in one of the podcasts, and I'm really looking forward to that as well. Listen, it's been absolutely wonderful. I do have one more question for you. It's been wonderful talking to you and to catch up with you. And it's wonderful personally for me, to share the growth that we're both going through. We've checked in with each other over the last 4 years here and there along the way, and we've had a good laugh about it. But we're really serious about the work we do. We're just not taking ourselves too seriously, because we know that would be an illusion as well. No, look, I guess the last thing I'd like to ask is just briefly, what would you say? There's people out there, they're watching this podcast, they're thinking, well, I don't get everything maybe straight away that they're saying, but I get the resonance. And there's going to be plenty in the details of the podcast about you, all your contact details and everything there for people to get in touch with you. And I really encourage people to do that as well, because there's plenty of us around the planet, and there are points everywhere, and everyone can go and find the person that works right for them. But if you're talking to someone who's never ever had this realization, maybe they're a little bit curious, they've watched your podcast, but they've never took the time to put their toe in the water, and they've never taken that step towards it, and they're wondering, are they just talking rubbish here, or could I have it too? What would you say to someone like that to encourage them to stick the toe in the water, or to just dive right in, take that first step, whatever that is, contacting you or whoever? What would you say? You've been through it, you're fully invested. How could you help someone to take their first step towards that investment?
Yeah, great question. And the first thing that pops to my mind, Mark, is that if you're here and you're listening to this, you're already doing it. This is your path. There's no accident. There's no coincidence. Things don't just pop into our reality. Just, oh, that's right. Just flooded on by. That was interesting. It's like, yeah, if it's in your reality, it's in your reality.
Already.
You can deny it. You've got free will. You can deny it. You can push it away, but it's always going to be there. If it's in your reality, it's part of you. It's there. And maybe right now isn't the exact time you're going to act on it. Maybe it is, but it'll be there. It'll be constantly there, and you'll constantly keep picking up more things and more things and more things. And for me, like I was saying early on, even early on in my career, where I just would take on opportunities. Like I never in any of my childhood did I ever say to myself, do you know what? When I grow up, I want to be a non-destructive testing technician that does radiography on worlds for submarines, right? Never did I think I was going to do that. But the thing come up into my awareness, the opportunity was there, and I thought, that sounds interesting, I'm going to take it. And that's how I really live my life. I think now I have more direction about that because I have more awareness. I'm more conscious of it. Yeah. But it's a choice that you can take. So if it's there, go and find out. One of the things I always say is that whatever decision you make is not going to be the last decision you make.
No.
So don't be afraid of making the decision. You can make another decision moving on from there. But if it's there, it's in your awareness, follow it up, see where it takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess behind all of this, what we're both talking about here is awareness. You've used the word a lot. I use the word a lot. Why not take a little bit of time and invest it in your own awareness and find out what it is that's it's right there, like you said. I mean, you don't, even the name of this podcast, a deep dive into human consciousness, you don't end up going, oh, well, I'll have a listen to that. Randomly. It's not random at all. There's nothing random about awareness. But if you believe it's random, then it can be quite a random lifestyle. And I've done that myself. But now I'm not so random. Now I'm learning how to hone in more and more. And it becomes easier and easier, in fact, and much more enjoyable and thoroughly satisfying just to be who I am, which in itself is just an ultimate reward for me personally, and that's something that I would say to someone. But I love your answer. It's been great having, I don't know, half an hour, 30, 40 minutes with you online. And I look forward to hanging out with you in the future. But for the moment, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day and sharing some of your ultimate consciousness with us, Toni. Thank you.
Right, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I love our conversations, and I really appreciate the chance to chat with you. And I'm sure we'll have more of these conversations soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks very much.